Hello and welcome to the Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena.
And this is where we talk about the good, the bad, and all the shift in between.
We'll just talk mad shift.
Let's get into it. And on today's episode, we're going to talk about a book that we both, well, at least for me, it had a great impact. And it's a book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And
How long ago did you read that book?
probably about 10 or 11 years ago.
Yeah. I remember thinking how proud I was of you that you had read that book, and it was like a little shocking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Annie's the one that brought it up for me. And it was in her library, and she was going through some marriage things back then, and it was just in her library, and I decided to read it, and I was like, oh man, this has got a lot of good nuggets of knowledge in there. And quite frankly, I had no idea that there was these different languages. So
yeah, it's normally a book that like a wife is trying to throw at their husband. Please read this, and he's like, oh my God.
yeah.
So yeah, but it's a very impactful book. I had read it probably around that same time, and I remember thinking like, this is a thing?
Well, you got to be the person's got to be wanting to read it, because I've given it to a few different men, and I don't know. I've never heard anything. I've actually bought it and sent it to their house. Not a peep. So I don't know how it impacted them, but it had such a big impact on me that I felt, the need to share. But it's definitely has some great knowledge in there for me.
Yeah, I thought that was why we would do this podcast today.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an old book, but a lot like you, some people have never heard the concept. And if you're speaking Japanese in an English-speaking home, nobody will hear you.
Yeah. It's all for naught.
Yeah. But first, we'll get into the Skin Deep cards.
Okay.
And you go first.
What do you think I need to hear from you? Oh, man. That's a loaded question.
Like, I don't already tell you. What you need to hear from me. That you are unconditionally loved. And that it's okay to put yourself first.
I like that.
Yeah. By putting yourself first, you put other people first.
I was waiting for you to drop a bomb and really say something like judgy.
Come on.
But it was so positive.
We're past that, aren't we?
Yeah, but sometimes the question was like, what do I need to hear? But I do need positive reinforcement, and just to know.
Yeah.
Here's something nice.
Yeah.
So that was good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Choose 5 words to describe our connection.
Oh. 5 words? Deep.
Yes.
Yeah. Deep is one. So that's one. And then unpredictable.
That's what makes it fun.
Yeah, I think that makes it fun. I think there's still a lot of sarcasm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fun and more lighthearted.
Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
We put the fun in dysfunction. That's for sure. And the last one would be love, I think. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely changed over the years, especially more recently. I think I would have probably had those descriptions of words, even years and years ago, without the deep, But a lot of the fun and all that kind of stuff, we've had those great times and a lot of meaningful times together.
Yeah.
But I think they're just it's a lot more deep now.
Yeah.
And the connection is definitely.
Yeah, I think we know each other more than we have ever known each other. We didn't even know we didn't know each other.
But what surprised you most about me? Like, was there something you were like you didn't? I know we talked about things that I didn't tell you, but I mean, in terms of a character trait, or was there something that you?
I don't think there were any real character traits that I didn't know, because just being around someone for your whole life, know their character, but I didn't know the depth of a lot of the things that had happened in your life, because I was seeing things from my own perspective.
Yeah,
didn't know a lot of the deep hurts that you had experienced in our same history, and the impact that it had on you, and it was just really shocking for me to see that I have this person in my life that I thought I was so close to, or that I knew so well, and to be like, wow, there was a whole cavern, deep cavern of things that I had not yet discovered.
Was it good because I was good at hiding and pretending it, or was it
I think we just got into these roles of you are this and I am that. You know, I'm the older sister, you're the younger brother. And you just kind of get stuck in these boxes.
Yeah.
And then I looked around and realized like, whoa, this is actually this human, this soul on his own journey. And there's so much more here that was just left untapped.
Yeah.
And part of me had this like regret that it hadn't been done sooner. But, you know, I realized like regret is useless.
Yeah.
And just brought me into gratitude for having been able to discover it.
Yeah, because we're here now.
Yeah, exactly. We're doing this weird thing like a podcast and, you know, moving into deeper awareness all the time.
Yeah.
All right. So let's get into these, the 5 love languages. It's a book by Gary Chapman. And first, let's talk about what are they? What are the 5 love languages? And why would you want to know anything about them?
Well, for me, I mean, I think I had no idea that I was speaking a different love language than my wife. And I was just doing what I was taught and what I was shown in my household, I think.
Yeah.
Or what I needed, I think was.
But what are the languages? Like, what is a 5 love language? Isn't it like how do you interpret somebody showing you or telling you they love you?
Yeah. It had previous to this book, it had never been broken down for me like that.
Yeah.
And so there's 5 of them. And the first one is words of affirmation.
Okay.
Which is, you know, like, I love you, sweet little notes, words of encouragement.
You're so beautiful.
Yeah, you're so beautiful, things like that. Because some people, that's their love language. They
like, that's how you communicate to me that I am loved.
Mm-hmm.
So the love language is, how do I know? How do I feel love? How do I receive it?
Mm-hmm.
How do I receive love? So communication is a receiving and a giving. And the receiving for me is, if it's words of affirmation, it's when you tell me, you know, I'm great. Words of encouragement, things like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The second one is physical touch. That's a little bit obvious, and it doesn't have to be sexual, but it's like with my son Logan. I read this book, The 5 Love Languages, has many variations, and one has to do with teenagers and kids. And I read that one that was more in tune with that. And it really showed me when I started to notice he would get frustrated or angry or upset. I could just put my hand on his shoulder and it would automatically calm him down. Or I could just start massaging his shoulder, or just, you know, any kind of a physical touch, and it automatically brought him right down. And that was super helpful because it made it easier to communicate with him. But I didn't know what his love language was until I tried out a few things and asked him some questions and that type of thing.
Yeah.
But that's one example, I think, of the physical touch.
Yeah. Hugging, holding hands. It's just like physical affection.
Yeah.
And that can be a big way that some people receive that they are loved.
Yeah. Making, being thoughtful and making that the priority.
Right. Right. Next one is what?
Receiving gifts.
Ooh. Yeah. Receiving gifts. It's also like a form of thoughtfulness.
Yeah. And gestures. It doesn't have to be a physical gift. Yeah. But, gratitude when receiving gifts. And a lot of times I think, I say it pretty often that if you want to know, it's for me, this is my opinion, but the way to know, or if you're trying to figure out that person's love language, just see how they give you love or how they send love.
Yeah.
And it's usually a good indicator of what they want and, to be reciprocated.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a big one too is if your love language is receiving gifts, and your birthday comes and somebody just completely is like, I forgot, or I got this on the way home. It's like, wow, what that's communicating could be, I don't mean anything to you.
Yeah.
I wasn't even, worth having a forethought.
Yeah.
For you to do something for me. And so that can be a way that love is not communicated. It's like, you don't love me.
Also, and this happened with my older son, Aiden. We always had this thing in the house, like to try to get straight A's. And, we're just trying to be positive parents and push to be their best selves. So we made a deal that, this was years ago when iPhones were just coming out, But a lot of his kids, I think he was about 13, 14 years old, maybe a little older. And he had a little, Nokia or something, or just a push button phone. And he wanted an iPhone. And I said, well, if you get straight A's, then I'll get you an iPhone. And he got a 3.98. And he said, Dad, I know I didn't get a 4.0. Can I still get the iPad? And I said, no. I said, when I play the lottery, if I'm off by 2 digits, I still lose. So you really, the deal was, if you get straight A's, I'll get you that phone. But his love language happens to be gifts.
Oh.
And so on a contrast to that, if you punish your child or your spouse or whoever with their love languages, it is 10 times more impactful. And that goes for physical touch. If you hit a child, which I'm physical touch, if you hit that child, it's 10 times more impactful to them and hurtful, because that's their love language. And if you use it against them, it's bad. So when I read this book, it was right when that was all happening. And I right away went and bought him an iPhone. I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? And so, I broke down and broke my little pact with myself and got him the iPhone, and really started to come around to more of the thought process of like celebrating his work to get there, and not only celebrating, his wins and his victories, but, finding out that his love language was gifts, it was hurtful to me when I found out that could be so impactful on him.
You don't want to keep your rules in a box.
Yeah.
And then just make that the thing, as opposed to letting him know.
Yeah. With any of these love languages, you got to be careful not to do the opposite.
Yeah. The fourth one is quality time. And actually, this is my love language. So somebody spending time with me or making time for me is the way that I feel loved. Like, I don't need a gift. I still like words of affirmation, but if you're giving me your time, to me, that means, wow, I'm important, And I never even knew that was my love language. But like you said, you can look at how I show love is by giving my time.
They're showing up.
Yeah. Yeah. By setting aside time.
Yeah. Yeah. That happens to be my secondary, or actually it's actually shifted to my primary. I think in the past year, going through this shift and this change and introspection to myself, and actually spending a lot of time alone, physical touch had to be pushed down.
Oh, yeah.
And, being separated from my wife and not having somebody there, man, that was super hard, because I almost felt like that was the punishment, was pulling away and taking that away. So I really had to find ways to love myself in that way. And really the quality time kind of shifted, because then I started spending more time with you and Armando and other people and going deep. And it was like, wow, this is really where the connection is, the intimacy and the physical touch, and that part, I think it's definitely there, but the quality time it's shifted over time to where that is now my primary love language.
Yeah. Quality time. All right.
The last one, the fifth one, is acts of service.
Yeah, acts of service. So that's like going out of your way, doing something for somebody that maybe even an inconvenience for you. And this is definitely like my husband Armando's love language. He is definitely acts of service.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, like, when you're not speaking the same language and somebody's doing acts of service for you, and you're like, well, thank you, but it's not hitting me the same way that it's meaning to be received, then that can also feel like a blow to the person who's doing it.
Yeah.
So this love language is a give and receive. And so really being aware of not only how you receive yourself, but how your partner receives, because then, when they're showing their love language to you, is really being mindful about, this is how he shows that he loves me, or she shows that she loves me. And there's a deep appreciation that can come from that, knowing like, I actually understand the language that you're speaking to me now. I'm not just like brushing it off as, well, that's not how I feel love.
Yeah.
But actually I know that that's what you're communicating to me. So I think being aware on both sides of how you receive and how your partner communicates is key.
Okay.
To really deepening that connection of communication of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's quizzes. If you go to the 5 Love Languages website, they have a quiz that you can take and find out what your love language is if you don't know. And sometimes I actually thought my kids' love languages were different when I just guessed without really knowing. I didn't know like Aiden's was it was receiving gifts. But then when I really started to look, and see whenever he gives gifts, his wrapping paper is so pristine and he takes time and he puts a lot of love into it. And then when I was watching, I was like, this is his love language, because he loves to give good gifts and that type of thing. So I realized that that's at least one of his top two.
Yeah.
And, but it was difficult I thought that I knew it, but I didn't.
Yeah.
And the same for my wife and for Logan, the same. I had my assumptions, but I wasn't right on point, because they're not as obvious as we think, especially if we've, running around blind without the knowledge of these languages.
And you're in a house with people speaking like 3 different languages.
Yeah.
How do you think that you can discover your love language? What are some ways that people can do that?
Your own personal love language?
Yeah.
Well, the quiz was the most helpful thing for me, because they have very poignant questions that kind of lead you down the path of like self-discovery and what your love language is. But maybe even if you didn't have that, just, thinking about what is your chief complaint in your relationship, or whatever that be. If it with another person, what is the chief complaint? What do you feel like you're lacking from that? Or what do you feel you need most, maybe?
Yeah. And I think like some self-reflection, like really, like you said, like looking at I think one of the main things would be like, how do you show your love for somebody else? And maybe you don't call it love. Maybe you just call it like, how do you light up when you're doing something, or when you're saying, is it by saying something to someone that you feel the most, love for them? Or when you're feeling love, what does that look like in expression? So for me, it was time, right? And for Aiden, like you said, you watched him wrap these gifts and maybe his face when he was presenting it, or how excited he was to do it. So having some self-reflection on the way that you express it, that is probably sometimes unconscious or subconscious, and really kind of looking at those ways. How do you spend your time doing something for someone else that you're expecting gratitude, or you are wanting them to know how you feel about them? What are the things that you innately do without even really thinking about it?
Yeah. And sometimes it's giving the other person what's not as easy, what's not so, like what's easy for me to give is the quality time and the physical touch. That's easy.
Yeah.
But the gifts, I've fallen short on that heavy, and because it's not important to me.
Yeah.
In
Same.
a sense. Yeah.
Same.
We talked about that before, where your birthdays and you didn't really like to celebrate those things. And, I've got a whole thing where my birthday is around Christmas, and I always got a gift. Everybody's like, I'm too broke right now. Here's your Christmas/birthday. And I'm like, what the everybody else got a separate present. Why don't you buy mine in June and save it up in the closet and then give me 2 presents? Why do I get, 2 smaller presents when the other person, you just split my gift,
Yeah.
So I have maybe some deep issues there that I still need to work on, since I'm bringing it up now. But I think that for me, that's one of the reasons why it wasn't as important. It was almost a turnoff for me.
Yeah, pay attention. Like what you're saying, paying attention to your desires too. Like, what is it that you want? What are the things, like when you are expecting to feel the most love? What is the thing you're waiting for, or what is the thing where you can feel your heart open when it happens?
Yeah.
So if Aiden says he gets a gift and he can feel his heart open, you can see the expression change on his face. Then oh, I'm speaking that love language for him. And same for words of affirmation. It's like when someone, gives you a compliment, or tells you how much they appreciate you just with words. Does that even feel like more of a gift that you unwrapped than any gift you could have received? Those are the things, like just kind of paying attention to when you feel your heart expand, when you feel yourself expand in a moment, what is happening? Is it somebody said, you know what, do you want to go out today? I just took the whole day off. Let's go spend some time together. And you're like, oh my gosh, what? Wow.
Yeah.
So really just kind of paying attention to what your own desires are, I think is a good way of, cluing into what your own love language is. Another one is actually looking at past relationships.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you can see really your deficits in past relationships. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't be a past relationship.
Yeah.
But where was it lacking? Where were you not getting what you needed? Were they never able to pay you a compliment?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I can imagine getting ready and, you know, doing my makeup or putting on a dress, and then walking out and being like, hello, you know, and nothing.
Yeah.
Like that would probably feel pretty devastating if my, you know, love language is words of affirmation.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't, I'd be like, cool, let's go. Like, I'm not even worried about what you think I, you know, look like, or if I smell good, whatever it is. But I think that's another way to just look at past relationships. And then actually, do the quiz from the Five Love Languages book.
Yeah. I actually, when I told you that I guessed the kids' love languages first, and then I, you know, low key gave them the quiz, and they were like, what is this? I'm like, I just need you to answer this. And they're like, what is this? And so can you just answer these questions? And so they went through them all, and they were like, they can tell by, you know, there's some verbiage on there that tells it's the 5 love languages. And I was like, well, I'm just trying to figure it out, you know? And they weren't too put off by it. They were just thought I was weird that I was trying to figure this stuff out. But that's how I discovered what my kids, I wanted to be definitive because I was guessing.
Definitely.
And when I was trying things, it wasn't working as good as I thought it should. So then I was like, maybe I got it wrong. And I did. So yeah, I definitely got it wrong.
I mean, I think it's a big deal because it can definitely impact your relationship, not just with your spouse, but like you said, with your children, with your friends. Every single person that you're interacting with has a love language.
Yeah.
So it behooves you to have some knowledge, one, that this exists, that it is a thing, and two, to have some knowledge about, like, I wonder what theirs is. And if you do want them to feel important or loved, or that there is something to this relationship, learning their love language can have a huge impact on your interaction.
Yeah.
And probably make things a lot easier. Because if you, like I said, are speaking you're speaking Japanese and they speak English, it's not going back and forth.
Yeah.
It's just going one way. And if they're not receiving what you're giving because it's not in their love language, you can end up feeling very defeated.
Yeah.
And like, why do I even bother?
Yeah.
When it's pretty simple that you could just try and figure out, like, I wonder how they receive it. How could I make, you know, an effort to actually meet them where they are?
Yeah.
You know? So I think it can have a huge impact on relationships.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about like the reasons why we're doing these 5 love languages. I think it's, you know, I think we learned that there are 3, what we believe are 3 different stages of a relationship, right?
Yeah.
And I think everybody kind of goes through them, and not everybody makes it to that next level. But I think an important way to get to that next level is actually to introduce and learn these 5 love languages. But the first kind of stage being role mates, and that's a lot. You know, you're just getting together, you're learning what each other are good at, and you start negotiating. Well, you're good at paying bills and writing checks and doing that, and you're good at fixing the cars and doing this, and you're good at X and Y and Z and taking care of the kids and help, and you're better at doing math homework, and so you just start developing these roles that each one of you has your strengths at.
Yeah, but your relationship can then turn into what feels like a business.
Yeah.
Like, I do this, you do that, you stay with this, and then it's just very separate.
Yeah, because you get out of that honeymoon stage and you get right into the role mates.
You get into the doing constantly.
And then it becomes competitive where you're like, well, she doesn't do this as much as I do that.
Yeah.
And then it just becomes a competition. And you start doing things not out of love, not because you want to do nice things for them or say nice things to them.
It's just your role.
It's just your role. Yeah. And then the second stage is soulmate. And I think everybody has that soulmate in there. What is soulmates to you?
I think the phase of soulmates is really recognizing that you are 2 separate people with interests and desires and, you know, purpose, and that you realize, like, oh my gosh, I'm on this journey with this other soul who also is on their own journey. And I fully realize that, and they do that for me. They fully realize that in me as well. And we're on this journey together.
Yeah.
So while we also have roles and things that we do in the house and we take care of one another, we also recognize that we are souls on a soul's journey, and we want to be fully realized as people.
Giving each other grace.
Giving each other grace. Yeah. Helping each other grow into the best version of ourselves.
And the love languages helps you get there.
Oh, absolutely. I think it could be a big
because it helps you to understand each other and what each other's needs are. And it really just nurtures that.
Yeah. Helps them grow into more of who they are. Yeah.
And then the last stage being whole mates. And that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Shared vision.
Yeah. And I think actually, from my perspective, I think that's where you and Armando are at.
I believe
is in the whole
I think
mates.
We're in that process of whole mates.
So what is that?
Whole mates.
What's the difference between the soul mates and the whole mates? Because I don't think many people, I've never heard it before. We learned about it was the whole mates. What is that?
I feel like the whole mates is, you've gone through the soulmate kind of version of your relationship where you realize both of these people have their own interests and desires, and you want to help each other grow in that way. But whole mates is a whole nother evolution of that. Whereas you're like, yeah, we are these two people, coming into more self-realization. What is our shared vision?
Yeah.
What is it that we want to create together?
Yeah. And you've worked through your processes.
Yeah.
And
or you're
you
actively
become whole
working.
people. Yeah. Like you've actually become, because I think the soulmate part, you're working on those things in discovery. But I think the whole mate part is you've kind of got your direction and your intention set. And you really are centered, it's like it's a synergy that you guys are working together to kind of just, a shared vision, shared goal.
Yeah. Shared vision for what you want this life to be and look like, and it's not just, well, we want to have a house and, a car, and we want our kids to not be in jail or whatever it is. It's that you have a vision for what you are, how you serve and how you live. And you're doing that together as two people who want to be self-realized, but to do so together.
Is there advice you would give to young couples that
Oof, man, I think it's to really kind of come into awareness yourself. It starts with you really working on yourself and really, figuring out where your, not just your triggers, but where your pain points are, and really being willing to work on those things. And to do so with your partner is beautiful, but when you can work on yourself and become more fully realized in your own happiness, in your own awareness, working on the things that are left over from childhood, especially, or past relationships, not bringing those into the relationship you're in now, is such a big part of that. And then really supporting your partner on their own journey, not taking things personally, just really being able to hold the space for them to grow, and being willing to go into those places, with them, fully supporting them. If they have interests and things that they want to do, support that, and especially if you're able to get that in return, is really just to value this other person, showing up as a partner fully.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's one of the main things, and not taking things personal, because nothing is personal.
That's a hard one though.
It is a hard one.
Because, technically we get together, well, not technically, but we matched with somebody that somehow the universe, planned that we're going to trigger each other so that we can heal, the parts in us that need to be healed.
Well, that's why we choose partners.
Yeah, that's why we choose partners, and we're attracted, like the opposites attract, all that stuff. It really comes into play. And
they're going to mirror for you your biggest wounds.
Yeah. My wife has been my greatest teacher, because there's so many things that I was confronted with, and she was strong enough to tell me, and I had to really look at myself and go, wow.
Yeah.
What is this that I'm becoming, or what am I, and why am I this person?
How am I affecting?
Yeah. And how am I affecting her in such a way, that she didn't want to be married to me anymore. So, really taking taking some time to self-reflect and figure those things out for myself has just been huge.
Yeah. That's a huge gift.
Yeah.
That, when it doesn't feel like a gift.
Not in the moment.
It actually feels like a kick in the, but it actually can be the biggest gift. It can be like the biggest path for your own self-awareness.
Yeah.
And the biggest way for you to grow. So in some ways, that mirror, that pain point can be the jumping off point for the biggest growth in your life.
Yeah.
If you're able to get your ego out of the way and come into like, wow, some self-reflection, like, what does this mean? What is happening?
Yeah.
Why? And that opens the gate to everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think I would encourage people to maybe ask their partners what their love language is. Maybe just inquire. I mean, you could just ask it.
Yeah.
I never did. I was just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I think I could have cut to the point and just asked.
Yeah. And if you ask and they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about, well, let's go find out.
Well, what's funny is like you said, oh, I just imagine like that's a book that wives just give their husbands and their husbands are just like, bleh.
Yeah.
Well, I gave it to my wife and I felt like she just went, bleh, bleh. So I don't know that it has to do with gender bias, but I just think it's, when people are ready to hear that stuff.
Just open the conversation.
Yeah.
What you could do is just do an experiment and be like, let's just do an experiment. Like read the book or just look up the 5 love languages and do the quiz and figure out like, where are you at?
Yeah.
Have it be a discussion and really see like, whoa, that's actually not how you know that I love you. And no, because you bought me a Gucci purse. I don't care. I don't even care about that stuff.
Yeah. And we think it's the greatest thing because, some people who grow up in like provider and what do you mean I don't love you? I put a house over your head. I give you food on the table, a car to drive. And now you're telling me I don't love you. What do you think I go to work for? But I had one of those types of dads who never, ever said I love you or hugged me, but definitely worked hard and did all those things. So, I mean, that was their way of showing love. And I didn't understand. Now, even those past relationships, like you say, I look back and I go, wow, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I can understand that. So,
it may have been the way that your parents communicated to you. I'm providing.
Yeah.
I'm giving you all these things. Well, that's how I know that you love me, right? But that might not be how your partner wants to receive love.
Yeah.
I would rather you like took the day off from work.
Yep.
I'd be like, whoa, that is way more exciting to me than this gift.
This purse or whatever. Yep.
Yeah. The gift can actually feel like a put off. It can feel like, I don't have time for you, but here's a gift.
Yeah.
But you just figure it out. Like just ask, do some self-reflection, have a discussion and figure out if you're actually speaking the same language. And if not, learn theirs.
Yeah.
Or learn your own. At the very least, learn your own.
Yeah. So you know what to ask for. Because, hurt people ask for love in the most unpleasant ways. Yeah. So yeah, we encourage you to be curious and check this book out. 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to get the book, just go online. Look it up on Google. It's all right there. But do the experiment. Figure out what your love language is.
Yeah.
Make some changes.
All right. That's been another episode of Let That Shift Go podcast. I'm Noel.
And I'm Lena. Let us know what your questions are, and we'd love to use them on a future episode. Or check us out on Insta at Let That Shift Go, or visit our website, serenitycovetemecula.com.